So today we're going to be 3D printing a... What is up, you sexy YouTube mother lovers? Today we're going for something actually that's a little different. This isn't something I've ever done on the channel before, but for those of you who don't know, I am a massive, unapologetic nerd. And that allows me to do a lot of cool stuff, like the AK-50 work, the Brass Valley stuff. There's a lot of things that being a nerd is kind of good for. Getting women is usually not one of them, at least not in the unironic. But yeah, that's what I got the hair for, so obviously. But one of the other things that kind of comes along with that is when we're doing AK-50 work or when we're doing any of the other projects that we've been working on that, like I said, I'm working on finding a way to be able to kind of announce those to you guys because we've never really talked about it, and some of the stuff we've had in the pipes for a couple of years. But with that is CAD software. CAD, for those of you who don't know, is computer-aided design. Basically, it's 3D modeling software is what we use, like SolidWorks, Inventor, things like that. And what I have up here is SolidWorks, and I'm not sure if you can even see it on the camera. This is a file for a 10-round AK magazine. So this right here is a California compliant magazine file. It was easier to print than 30 rounds, so don't be a dick about this, okay? But the reason that I have this up in the computer is because today we are going to be talking about 3D printing. Now, 3D printing is cool as hell. It's kind of been a hobby of mine for a little while, and it's something that is really, the technology has advanced quite a bit in the last couple of years. It wasn't something that was super accessible to people about 5 years ago. It was kind of new. There weren't a lot of different things out there. It wasn't quite as cheap for a good printer, a good quality printer as it is now, and it's really kind of advanced to the point where realistically, if you're like me and you like this sort of shit, there's no excuse to not have a 3D printer. The learning curve is realistically, I mean, if you just dedicate a day or two to it, you can get it mostly figured out, and it's just really fun. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with it, and so that's one of the things I wanted to talk about because I wanted to actually make 3D printing a bigger part of what we do here on the channel. Not really like a big change of direction as far as content goes, but every once in a while when we're working on cool stuff that can be 3D printed, I want to release those files to you guys so that you guys can follow along at home and kind of add an interactive element to it where if we're working on something cool and you see that on YouTube and you're like, wow, that's cool, I'd like to have that, you can go ahead and just download the files and be able to print it for free, basically for $3 worth of plastic. And so I think adding something like that to the dynamic is going to make things cool. It's going to make a lot of what we're working on here a lot more real for you guys. And any chance I get to kind of incorporate you into what we're doing is cool to me. So that's one of the things that I wanted to start doing. I'm thinking about adding an entirely new section of the site just for 3D printed stuff, where we're housing the files for free that you can download and basically follow along at home. The way I've kind of run this company so far, I've had a lot of fuck-ups along the way, but I've kind of always tried to push in a different direction. I wanted to try to be a newer, forward-thinking company because I think that the gun industry especially gets stuck in a lot of old ways, I guess. Not a lot of people embracing newer stuff, like embracing social media, embracing the power of younger guys that have access to all this stuff, all the I mean shit, what Brass Valley was entirely dedicated to finding these younger guys with that sort of drive. And instead of telling them, hey kid, get a 6-year engineering degree and then we can talk about an interview, just kind of giving them a chance to apply their skills practically and potentially find a job in the industry. I think that's super cool. And one of the things, the newer technologies is 3D printing. And that's bringing things on a consumer level, the barrier to entry down a lot, especially to new ideas, to prototyping, to making new stuff. Is easier now. In 2019, there is no excuse to not be trying new stuff. Except the ass-eating thing. I didn't understand that. I think that was just kind of a 2018 meme. Don't comment on that part. So I guess that's the purpose of this video, is so that when I start doing, the occasional video about, a new project or something that's available, that you can print or something like that. It's not totally out of left field, but I wanted this to be a very, very, very brief intro to 3D printing and especially the stuff that we do. I'm going to try not to say any of that stuff out loud so the YouTube algorithm doesn't, freak the fuck out. I've used a couple of different 3D printers over the years. I used some really expensive stuff from back in the day, but really the technology has advanced to the point where you can get a very cheap 3D printer that will run circles around the quality of what a several $1,000 printer would do 5 years ago. So what I've got behind me, this is an Ender 3. This is a 3D printer that I picked up a couple weeks ago, and I've been really impressed by the quality so far. A lot of people recommended it to me. A couple of the Brass Valley guys had recommended this was a printer I should check out. And so I picked one up on Amazon. I'll include the link in the description so you can pick up one of these. This is the one I got was the one with the glass bed that a lot of people recommended that I pick up. The glass bed came along with it. It's like 239 bucks, I think. So this is not an expensive printer at all. And the filament is not expensive. It's, you know, depending on what you're printing with, you can get it for, you know, $15, $20 for a good spool of you know, printing filament that you can do all sorts of cool stuff with. And that opens all sorts of things up to you. But that brings me around to the broader point. I think it is really, really important that people get more involved in the technologies as they advance for additive manufacturing stuff at a consumer level, something that's really easy, because A, it's a hobbyist thing. If you're a nerd like me, you're gonna enjoy this shit right off the bat because it's so fucking cool, especially if you're into the engineering stuff and into, you know, making new shit, prototyping cool shit. This is an obvious investment that is going to serve you well, and I think you're gonna have a lot of fun with it. But I also think there's kind of an element to it that kind of the Cody Wilson vibe, and this is where you get a little bit of the defense distributed side of things. And I want to stay relatively apolitical about it, but I do think it's important that people understand the ramifications of making magazine bans and gun confiscation, things like that, literally irrelevant by the power of an electronic motor, a thing that heats up plastic, and basic software that tells it where to go and how much to feed at one time. Basically all this is the definition of the can't stop the signal. I mean, this is where you have made most forms of anti-2A legislation completely unenforceable on a very practical level. And I think that's cool as hell, but I also think it's very important. But I'm gonna get off my soapbox. We're gonna go ahead and start this print. So I'm gonna show you guys a little bit about how that works. So like I said, this is the Ender 3. I'm gonna have a link in the description and a link in the pinned comment where you can pick one of these bad boys up. I do get a little kickback off that because I finally got off my ass and became an Amazon affiliate, so there's that. So this right here is my software of choice for a lot of when we're just kind of designing stuff. This is SolidWorks. If you want to know the basic Coke versus Pepsi debate of the nerd engineering world, everybody's got their preferred software and it's like a religious dedication. I don't really get into that, but that doesn't mean they don't. But this is SolidWorks, so we have a file here. This is an STL file. STL files are what you're mostly going to be looking for if you're doing 3D printing, because STL files are what is able to really kind of talk to a lot of printers in a plug-and-play kind of way. I've taken that to a program called Cura, and what that is basically writing G-code for the 3D printer so that when you have, this is the same file, right? But it's writing it in a way that the 3D printer can understand it, and it's adding support filament and things like that, and basically a raft for print bed adhesion so it doesn't start to peel up and ruin the print and stuff like that in the middle. So we've got our settings all dialed in. I've already spliced it. It's going to take 10 hours because I'm running my settings very slow. I also really like to make sure that my workstation is as loud as possible so I can trick myself into not needing sleep. Powered up the 3D printer, and we're going to go ahead and start a preheat. So what it is it's heating up the extruder, which is the piece that the plastic feeds out of, and it's also heating up the bed. And the reason for the heated bed obviously is for print adhesion. Not obviously. Why would you know that? But it's for print adhesion. Basically, it just keeps the bed nice and warm for the plastic, so it doesn't cool completely and just not stick. All right, so I've got that started. It's heating up for both. I've already put my files on the little micro mini SD card. I put that in there, so when it is ready, I will just click print here. So while we're waiting on that to heat up, basically there's all sorts of stuff that you can do with this, with 3D printing that not necessarily is entirely like, I guess, practical usage. So of course you can print, magazines, you can print lowers, you can print all sorts of cool stuff. Right now we're working on a fully 3D printed, I think it's like the Shuddy, I believe, the 9mm pistol caliber AR carbine looking thing. It's kind of gnarly. So there's all sorts of stuff that you can print with that, but there's also a lot of uses. If you like designing things, you can just take this CAD software of your choice, make whatever part you'd want to design, in there, and then you can actually have a physical copy, especially if it's like an assembly. Like for firearm development, holy hell is this useful, because you get to see outside of the computer how these parts, it would never function and it would never fire. Well, it would fire once. But it allows you to see how these parts would interact in physical space. And in firearm development, that is completely invaluable. That is, it saves you a lot of fuck-ups, because you're able to identify, okay, this wouldn't work and this is why, when you get to see all the parts kind of playing together. So there's a lot of really, I'm eating my hair, fucking Christ, I need a haircut. I'm gonna shave my head and say nothing about it. I'm just gonna completely shave my hair one day and you know, go clean shaven and just not address it in the beginning of the video, to see all the new people coming in very confused as to why the comment section's having a fucking riot. So hopefully this was useful for you. This is really just kind of a pitch about why I think 3D printing is cool, why I think it's important. Oh, it's working. All right, so hopefully this has been kind of fun for you guys. Kind of get to, if nothing else, a little bit of a better understanding about how we do some of the prototyping stuff here, and give you a little bit of context for some of the stuff that's about to start happening on the channel. I'm not going to do a lot of this stuff unless that's what you guys really want, but I do think this is going to be kind of a cool way to supplement what we're already doing, and we're going to have a section on the website to you know, facilitate the 3D printed files and things like that. And you know, who knows if how about that, if this video gets over 5,000 likes, we will put up the tactical bean holder on the website. We need to like have a meme section of the site to just separate that out from the serious stuff. But anyway, this is just something that I thought was cool, maybe be a cool new direction. Let me know what you guys actually think about this stuff. And yeah, hashtag AKG Notification Squad is a thing as always. Also, we'll have a link to Third Pin Threads where you can pick up this sweet ass t-shirt. It does look cool as hell. And I guess as always, I will see you sexy motherfuckers in the next video. Thanks. No printing dicks. I'll know. Big Bang Theory, is that show that all the old white people like? You know, forcing these guys to go, you know, get six year, and oh my God, that was a fucking, ugh. Woo! Wow, that was like 8 stutters in a row.
It sounded like you were starting out saying like, force them to get a sex change.
Brandon.exe has stopped working.